Hello, this is Cece Lang from Buncast by auctionforecast.com, and today I have a very special interview for you. I recently had a conversation with Martine Saunier, who is one of the most successful wine importers in the United States. In the interview, I get to ask her a number of questions on her opinions about the current fine wine market, the impact of the climate, and other market conditions on wine prices, and her advice on buying, investing, or collecting fine wine. We also talked about how she started her business importing wines from Burgundy to the States in the late 1970s, her journey as a French wine importer, and also the first woman wine importer making her name in the States, and her story of making the beautiful trilogy films including A Year in Burgundy, A Year in Champagne, and A Year in Port. It is a very juicy conversation, and Martine does not hold back. I hope you enjoy this interview, and also check out the article I have written below that includes the key messages and anecdotes. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Martine. I was a big fan of your film, A Year in Burgundy, and I wrote an article about it. It was a great film. I really loved it. What was the inspiration for you to document those?
Well, it's just because, it so happened that a filmmaker, David Kenner from the BBC, he worked for the BBC for 25 years, got a reputation in America, in Hollywood, came to do a documentary, and then decided to stay in America. So he has a company called Inca Film, located in Sausalito, California. Mm-hmm. So out of the blue, this man came and asked me if I wanted to he wanted to make a movie on Burgundy. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, why? And he said, why me? Because he said, well, because I know your reputation, I know anything I should know about you, and people said that the only person who could do it will be you. So I checked him out, of course, because I didn't know who he was at that point. Yeah. But I decided, yes, to go for it. And he said it will cost $500,000. We have to find the money because it's not a commercial film. Right. So therefore, we cannot get money from the industry. So I said, fine. Well, lucky me, 2 weeks later, I go to the Blackberry Farm in Tennessee to do an event on in fact, I was invited by the Beer family, the owner, to spend Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. And I met a gentleman who knew my reputation, knew my wines, and he said, let's exchange cards. So he gave me his card, and I gave him my card. And then I look at his card, and I said, oh my God, if I don't have the gentleman, where could I find such an opportunity? And I said, would you know anybody who would invest into a movie for Burgundy, with a very good ex-BBC producer? And he looked at me and said, of course, I know people, and I'm interested myself. And of course, the title of the gentleman was Mr. Hero Van Price. Yeah. What happened is then I got the money, and we had a dinner with Mr. Robert Parker at his house in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. And from there on, we went immediately, they all approved the project, and then we went, Mr. Kennard and I, we went to Burgundy in April. So I will introduce him to some of the producers that I thought will be, good actors in that movie. Mm-hmm. And so we did some filming just to see how they react in front of the camera and how they behave themselves, So anyway, we came back later a second time, and we decided to do A Year in Burgundy for 4 seasons. Yeah. And it's exactly what happened. Mm-hmm. And we got 6 producers. And after a year, we had a meeting with Mr. Rupert, which came back to me, and he decided he wanted another movie on Champagne. Mm-hmm. So we did the second movie, and it's the same principle. I took 4 small producers, 2 houses a big reputation like Bollinger, who owns vineyard, and Gosset, who doesn't own vineyard. And then it came, they wanted a trilogy. And so I said that they didn't want to do another French wine, wine country. So I suggested Portugal, which is so beautiful, and also because Portuguese wines are getting in reputation now,
Yeah.
So that's what happened. And so the movie is just came out last year, and it's been subtitled in French and Portuguese, and it's going to be released in a couple of weeks for sale. There we go. On all that, Peter Goldwyn bought the 3 movies, so it's been on the airlines and Amazon, everywhere. But I think it's a good promotion for the wine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
for sure.
In general, I mean, people. I think it's been very good for also the tourism, because a lot of people are not really wine buff, but they look at the countries, they're so beautiful. I mean, everybody now goes to Portugal. So that's what happened.
I think it's a really good strategy to make the films and to make those places known. And, it's almost poetic, I feel, about those films and how they portray
the Burgundy, especially because Burgundy, besides we have those big negociants like Drouin, Jadot, that, they're good, but nobody realized among the consumers what work it is to be a small producer. They all, they're very small. I mean, Burgundy produces 10% of what Bordeaux produces in wine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very small quantity. I mean, if you go Chateau Margaux, 25,000 cases. If you go Madame Leroy, it's 5,000 cases. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. So, so I think people never knew that, you see. They don't realize how small and hard work it is, and also they don't realize what problem is coming now because of the taxes. The value of the land has been going up and up and up. And, 30 years ago, a producer that bought a vineyard for $100,000 now is more than $1 million. So when they want to transmit their vineyard to their children, the children will never have the money to pay for taxes, the inheritance taxes, which are 50%. So you can imagine what's going on now. I mean, of course, a lot of big companies have been buying wineries, but they have to have the local people take care of it. You see, that's the story. And secondly, as we can say, a lot of people now, a lot of small wineries creating corporations. So corporation is not taxed as the same way as if you were, if you were just a single owner. And families now are part of this corporation. Of course, all the kids don't want to be winemakers. So it's really a big problem, as you can see.
Yeah. How do you think that pricing of the land is affecting the price of the wines?
I'll tell you something. If you buy a vineyard, if you buy a Musigny now, a little piece of Musigny, even half an acre, you'll pay, I don't know, millions. But you can never match the price with a bottle. They will never, it will never happen that you can get your investment back. You understand? There's no way.
Wow.
There's no way.
So how do people do it?
Well, you can't. You can't. You see, Madame Leroy, every appellation that I represented was normally priced. But with the price of the land and the rarity of the wines and the market that became so international, there is no way to control the price. Madame Leroy used to sell maybe a Bourgogne Blanc, Bourgogne Rouge, the basic appellation. She used to sell it to me for maybe $8, $10. But now he sells it to me for $40 or something like that. You see what I mean? You can't, it doesn't make sense, but that's the way it is. I mean, her price has gone up to a point that only some great collectors can afford it. And of course, the Chinese market has a real influence because the Chinese have been buying wines like crazy.
Are they still doing that right now? Because we noticed that, a few years ago, they were really impacting the market by just buying large quantities, and they're really throwing the money into the market. But then they had a stock market crash a couple years ago.
Yeah, of course. But, China is a big country. There are a lot of people that still have money. Right. And I tell you, that was true for Bordeaux because Bordeaux has so much wines.
Right.
And in fact, there was a movie made about that. Have you ever seen that movie? It was made by an Australian. You should look into it because this gave you an idea why the market went so, the Chinese wanted to buy everything, all the old wines, the new wines.
Yeah.
And they realized, after all, there was plenty of wines. And actually, the investment, you have to wait for a while before you get your money back.
Yeah.
But as far as Burgundy is concerned, it's a different matter because we have little wines. So no matter what, they will pay for it because there is not enough for everybody. That's the difference. The difference between a winery that sells 25,000 cases and one that sells only 5 to 10,
mm-hmm.
It makes a huge difference. The rarer the wine, the more money it's going to get. Because Burgundy is so small, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And then when you have, if you have a normal harvest, already is expensive. But between 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14 even, we have very small quantities. High quality, maybe,
mm-hmm.
but small quantities. So, in fact, in some of those vintages, winery made half of the crop twice in a decade. Successively. So what happened is, they have to survive with half of the crop. Financially, it's very tough. So they have to raise the prices.
Yeah, but it seems like they're not. Are they raising the prices enough for them to compensate for the lack of production?
Well, I tell you, some do, some don't. All depends where you're located. What wine you produce.
Right.
But they have to make it this way anyway. There is no choice. They have cut down on expenses. They have probably to, but they've been making money in previous years because, mm-hmm. believe me, when I started in Burgundy buying wine in 1969, nobody had a Mercedes or they were the only thing they have is the 2 CV Citroën, like a little Renault or bicycle, but they didn't have big tractors. Tractors came right after. Now, you see, everybody is mechanically up to date. And also, we have better way. We know better how to make wines because all the children are going to school and they have to have a diploma if they want to be a winemaker. Even if you are the son of a winemaker. If your father owns a vineyard and you want to take over the vineyard, you've got to graduate from viticulture and enology school in Beaune. That's the way it is in France. You cannot say, well, I'm taking over. You have to have a diploma. You have to go to school.
Wow. So how early does that start?
When they're around 15, when they graduate from high school, which is about 17, 18, mm-hmm. they have to go to viticulture school. It's like, that's the way. It's 2 years in Beaune. Yeah, but now we make better quality wines because they learn the chemistry of wine, which is very important.
Yes.
Chemistry, they have a better knowledge. When I started, the knowledge that the winemaker had was from his father and grandfather, that transmitted orally, on the practice and so on. All the kids learn from their parents. They still do, to a certain extent, but now their knowledge is not sufficient to allow them to take over a winery. So they have to have education.
And the technology is evolving, the technology of winemaking.
Yeah, yes, exactly. I mean, now we have so much better knowledge how to make wine. It's amazing. So, making mistake is very hard. Anyway, but that doesn't make the wine better in a way, because if you have very good grapes, you make very good wines. If you don't have very good grapes, then you can make still good wine if you know what you're doing.
Right.
If you know, the experience is what counts.
Right.
An experienced winemaker. So, here we are.
Yes. So in terms of the grapes, it has a lot to do with, the vintage and the weather of that year.
Well, exactly. Every year, it's we start in the spring. Are we going to have frost? Because we have frost till at the end of May, sometime, And so, if we have an early spring, then if the vines are in bloom, and if you have a frost, you can lose your crop. You can have a second burst of buds, but it's not always. And then after you go through the frost, then do we have rain? We don't have rain. Is it too hot? Is it too cold? Is it too gray? I mean, until the harvest is in your winery, you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
That's the way it is. They have to decide when to harvest. Is it an early year?
Yeah.
But I have to tell you something. In 1978, I was in France in end of August. They had a terrible overcast, gray, cold summer. And trust me, the grapes looked like peas, little green peas. There was nothing right. I mean, and we are just at the end of August. They were desperate because they didn't have any sun. Well, what happened? September 1st, the sun started to shine. It was very warm. On all months of September, it was sunny, no rain. It was extraordinary. And I tell you what, 78 was a magical vintage and still is to this day. So if you find some 78 Burgundy, it's fabulous.
That's awesome.
That's what happened. There was a miracle.
So
it's
1 month saved the whole vintage. 1 month of good weather in September saved the whole vintage.
Yeah, exactly.
And how are they different? How are they special in terms of how they taste?
Well, because the grapes were small. They were very concentrated, very small grape, very concentrated. Quite a lot of it. So it was a perfect balance. That's it,
Wow.
But what can I say? I mean, it's a perfect balance. Before you go for a harvest, the weeks prior to the harvest, like the week before, everybody's trying to figure out, because you see, we have so many microclimates that each vineyard might be different. You don't start all at the same time. So they pick little grapes. They go through the rows of vine, and they have a little plastic bag. They put little grapes. They pick from here to there. They go to their lab. They press those grapes, and they analyze the alcohol, the acidity, and they can see whether it's ready or not. Also, we're better equipped. But in the old days, you used to eat the grapes, put it in your mouth. If the pits were hard, you knew that they were not ripe, and if it was sour or so on, or they took little sample and they have a they could decide the alcohol, the degree of sugar, to see if it was enough. But that was very simple. And now we have, technically, we do a lot better.
Yeah. And do you see that some of the regions, their climates are getting warmer in the summer?
Okay. Now, in France, for example, the weather has got warmer, not only in the south, but all over France.
Right.
And for the last 10 years, Chablis, for example, which is the northern part of France, which is just before you go to Belgium, in France, the weather has got warmer in the south, which is the Rhône Valley, the Languedoc. It got warmer every place, even in Burgundy, even Chablis. Chablis used to be the coldest place of all the wine region. I knew I could go to Chablis May 1st and have snow, on high wind. But now they really have a warmer weather every place. And that for the south, it's not so great because already the alcoholic degree has gone up to 14.5 to 15% alcohol per volume, which is not very good. Okay. In Burgundy, we have warmer weather, but it's still okay. But how long is it going to last? I mean, if we get, we can see this summer we had days that were very, very warm, very hot. So we don't know. But, I have to tell you something. Now the British in Kent and
I heard.
Perfect. They were presenting the sparkling wine of England, and they're very good.
Oh, wow.
You see, a sparkling wine doesn't have to have more, it can't have more than 12.5% alcohol. That's the limit. So in England, it's perfect. Now the climate is warmer. They have Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier growing. And in the last 10 years, it's been a big, since early 2000, I think some people had the feeling that the climate was changing and they should plant vines and start producing wine. And it's exactly what happened. You have two big companies in England that now we represent in California and New York, and it's really very exciting. Yeah. Very good. But because not only they have a warmer weather in the south of England, but they have the same soil as we have in Chablis and Champagne. The same type of soil. What was the difference? It was too cold, too wet. But now it's warmer. So now England is producing sparkling wines, which probably will be, in the next 10 years, be quite a big industry.
Wow. How would that affect the prices of the high-end wines in France?
It doesn't matter. You have to realize that before, if you take Champagne, for example. Yeah. Champagne is a huge industry. Champagne as production has gone crazy. Everybody is drinking champagne. Before it used to be a special occasion. Now you drink champagne for dinner, before dinner, after dinner. Everybody drinks champagne. And it's really very different. Not only champagne, but you have all the sparkling wines that is produced in Burgundy, in the Loire Valley. You have the Italian with Prosecco, Cava in Spain. Everybody's drinking sparkling wines besides champagne. It's a big industry. It's very different. Years ago, you could painfully put a sparkling wine on the market. Now there is not enough sparkling wine, meaning it's not from a Champagne region. Champagne is only from the Champagne region.
Right.
But, I sell a lot of sparkling wine from the Loire Valley, and they're excellent. Excellent. So you see that Alsace, they also have a sparkling wine. The Jura has sparkling wine. Region of France that before you never heard of, like the Jura was a very small market, but now the wine of the Jura are very, very good. I mean, they've always been good, but they produce a lot more. And the Savoie is the same thing. We have wines from all kind of regions that we never even look at about 15, 20 years ago. Right. And now, because of the warming of the climate warming, then they produce wine again. They're back. And also they have the technology to do it.
Right.
We have more wines on the market. But the wines that for investment are the rare wines. And the rare wine, who are they? Well, they are the Burgundies, certainly Burgundy, but also Bordeaux, because Bordeaux has lots of wine. Yes. Bordeaux, it will continue. Yeah. Years ago, you used to have an offer of Bordeaux pricing on 2 years before they can be released, and people will buy futures. And then, it was, you buy it at a certain rate according to the rate of exchange. And, it was a big industry. And especially, everybody got a fax with the prices the same day, the same time. Now it's all on internet. And, you have to trust the merchant. You have to be careful about the rate of exchange. Yeah. And, people are piling wines for the future. And I tell you, if you go to the auction house, you see how much wine they sell of collectors for last 50 years that have been collecting huge amount of Bordeaux or Burgundy.
Yes.
But especially Bordeaux. They are selling it in Hong Kong in auction. The auction in Hong Kong is out of sight.
Wow.
It's amazing.
I've been to some of the auctions in New York.
Yeah. But if you go to Hong Kong, you will have an experience.
Oh, sure.
Because
I'm sure I will.
They come from Taiwan, they come from Beijing, they come from different parts, and then they have the Japanese, and they all on the telephone during the auction talking to their partner somewhere else, Israel, Singapore, or whatever. They all buying like crazy. It's just amazing.
Yeah, so it seems like, the warmer climate is going to produce some of the new regions, but it seems like the classic Bordeaux and the Burgundies in terms of the investment grade wines are still going to be strong.
Yeah, I mean, we actually, yes, it is. I mean,
because they're rare.
We're not going to change the rare wine because there are the Burgundies and the Bordeaux.
Yeah.
And it's not going to change. If they make good wine, and it will be, it's what it is. It's not going to change. They can continue investing.
Yeah, and also recently, there's news from BBC that's saying that there's a huge decrease in wine production, the biggest decrease in wine production in the past 50 years.
Yes, because of the weather.
Yeah, so there's a decrease in production. Does that mean investment grade wines their prices are going to go up?
Well, probably for a while, yes, I'm sure. Okay. I'm sure, but you see, right now, I mean, look, in Burgundy this year, 2017, everybody is happy. They have a very good production and very good quality. Mm-hmm. Burgundy had a very good crop this year.
Okay.
Very good crop, very good quality, and they're very happy. They are back to normal.
Okay.
But Bordeaux had a lot of frost. Therefore, therefore they don't have the quantity. They have very small quantity. This is not a good year for Bordeaux. But otherwise, some region in France, like the Languedoc and so on, making simple wine. Even the Rhone Valley, I understand for lack of water, was affected because there was no rain at all. So, if you have no rain, you have no juice.
Right.
That's simple. So, it all depends. The climate is what determines really the crop.
Right.
But each region is different. each region can have affected differently because it can, like the frost in Bordeaux was terrible, but it didn't affect certain part of Burgundy. It didn't have to, this is just the way it is. But on the other hand, Loire was affected. There is less even in not expensive wine, there is less quantity. But trust me, there is enough to drink.
I don't doubt that.
Nobody is going to be thirsty. Because you see, okay, look, when I started, we never heard about Romania, Czechoslovakia, Slovenia, Poland. I mean, all the Eastern countries now are back in production of wines. Mm-hmm. I mean, you never heard of it before. It didn't exist. You had Italy, Spain, France, and Germany. Mm-hmm. Those 4 countries provided wines exported to America. Right. And now we have the Eastern countries, but not only that. We have Chile, Uruguay, Argentina. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody's producing wine. Huge quantity. Australia, New Zealand. Yeah. I mean, who is going to be thirsty? Tell me.
Yeah. And you're saying that the Asia market and Chinese market, they're still buying the high-end wines.
Yes, it's still. I mean, there's a lot of money in China. Trust me, the big guys, they want to get the best wine, and they're going to get it. But don't forget also that China is growing grapes, and they make wines also. And I'm sure they will come to a point where they will probably find some exceptional area where they can grow great wines. I mean, the Chinese are going to drink their local wine. They will not need us for the cheap wine. You see, they're going to have their own wine.
Right.
But
that makes sense.
Might be also they one day they will produce some very good wine. You know, we have a lot of French investment in China that are exploring the possibility of making wines, and they hire French winemaker and so forth. I mean, yes, I mean, it's a big world, you know, and everybody's getting into the wine business.
Right.
But nevertheless, I think the Great Chateau of Bordeaux will always be on the market because they have been there for a long time. Yeah. They produce always quality wine, very reputable. Yeah. So that's it. And in France, in Burgundy, we have, you know, excellent winemakers now, and the production is, they realize if they want to make Musigny, Morachet, it has to be top quality. I know the big houses like Bouchard, Drouin, they have the most modern wineries ever. You know, I mean, they've been redoing the winery, and it's the state of the art. That's it. So they can safely invest in, everybody can invest safely now in. I think it was more difficult in the old days to invest in wineries that you didn't know.
Right.
Years ago, I started between 69 and 79. I went to buy wines in France, and I put on the market wines that were never found before. I mean, it was the new generation of wine consumer that decided to get high quality wines. And from me, that's how the Burgundy started to sell more and more. People paid attention. Instead of buying wines from a big wholesaler, they decided to go to small producer. And that's what people want. I mean, those wines are unique in quality. In quantity, they're small, but they're very reputable. So you have some very big, very reputable wineries in France, in Burgundy mostly.
Yeah.
Small quantity. But you still have new producers coming on the market because, during the transmission of land to a new owner and so on, there are new little guys that come out of the woodwork and they start to establish a reputation. And also, Thèse, which is south of Côte de Beaune, this area was not really regarded as very good. It was ignored, and the wines are very good. So I think there's plenty of wine to doing. But also, you have to understand that the south of Burgundy with Pouilly-Ficé, Mâcon, now they want to probably attribute certain Pouilly-Ficé a first growth rating because they realize that the wine can be as good as Meursault or Chassagne. And because also people pay more attention to winemaking. They make it more serious wine. Yeah. So you see, altogether, I think it's progress.
Yeah. I saw that you had a background in marketing and PR before you got into wine. And I was wondering if you can, unpack a little bit about the role of marketing in wine production and wine sales.
You see, when you start to import a new winery on the market, don't expect to be successful the first year. Mm-hmm. It takes a long time to establish your reputation. Right. I would say now it may be faster, but it's a minimum of 5 years. 10 years, we have guys on those. They establish their reputation. They don't have to worry about it. They produce quality wine and their name is known. But you see what happened in America. Let's say I'm going back to the time where the dollar it was in the 80s. The dollar went 1,000 francs for a dollar. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, the dollar was so strong. It was unbelievable. So a lot of people decided, we're going to sell wine. We're going to have... So little guys had no idea, just because they love France and they love to go and eat in Paris and in the country, they contacted small winemaker and they made containers of wines and they landed here, but they don't have any marketing plan. Right. You see, you can't do that. And New York is full of small importers like that love France and its wine, and they import 50 cases of this, 50 cases of that. That is not a way to do business. This is hurting the other business because, you see, you have this affluence of wine that nobody knows about, and they probably have to put the price down and so on. You have to work to get a reputation. You have to make tasting. You have to explain to the consumer what is having, why it's made, how it's made. I mean, people tasting wine, now. They develop a taste for wine and they learn. When I came to California, I mean, ladies used to buy Chenin Blanc because it was sweet. They started with sweet wine before they graduated to Chardonnay dry. And it was a long process. Yeah. Now we have a much bigger market. People are drinking more wines. But nevertheless, every winery that you put on the market, you have to work to make its reputation. It's not easy, but I think the press is very helpful. You have the wine spectator who is tasting wine constantly. You have Robert Parker. You have Alan Meadows for Burgundy. Zillion of other writers that write about wine, and all that is good. When I first came to establish my market in California, I realized how important the press is. The press can make you or destroy you. See, right? But if you have a good article, very, very good for you, for your wine, for your reputation. My first big article was, I think, in 1981, 2 years after I started my company in 79. It was Nathan Croman. And in 81, I met the wine writer for the Los Angeles Times. Okay. Who wrote an article about a quarter of a page in LA Times saying Martine Saunier is her name, Burgundy is her game. On that article, title. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, especially because it was a syndicated column, it went all over United States. Wow. So my market that I developed between San Francisco and Los Angeles, San Diego, people wanted my wines in in Texas, in New York, whatever, because I have this wonderful article with these wonderful wineries that are represented, and everybody wanted a piece of the action. So, you see, it's how you now, of course, wine is, there are so many wines in the market, but in those days, a great Burgundy was not to be found any place or any time. People were used to very ordinary Burgundy made in bulk with a label, and all of a sudden they have estate Burgundy, great vineyard, wonderful quality, is how the evolution of the market at that point from the late 60s, we go into the 80s and 90s. You have some fantastic wineries that came on the market and are still in the market. They were totally unknown before, you see?
Yeah. So it seems like there are two layers of marketing. There's a marketing of the wine importers and buyers like your company. And once, you get the exposure, then you bring the wines to the U.S. market. And the other layer of marketing is the marketing of the wineries themselves, right? I guess they're connected to, you give the certain wineries exposures, the wines you choose.
But you have to understand that in France, the wineries in the country, those little wineries, or even beside Bordeaux, there are big wine merchants for generations, but the rest of France do not understand the American market. They don't understand that if you sell wine in California, you have to get a license to sell it in Texas, get a license, paying a fee, and getting another distributor. They don't understand the 3-tier system. They don't understand. Wow. They think it happened like that, Now, we live in a country, America. It's like being in Europe. When you go to Germany in those days when we had frontiers, you had to pay duties, you have to pay taxes, America is having all the state has got different laws, different way of functioning. Sometimes it's only the state that makes the money. Utah or state of New Jersey, they are state control and they make a lot of money on wine. So, if we didn't have that, we don't have a free market. The thing is, you try to make a Frenchman in Burgundy to understand this system. They can't believe it. They cannot believe it. She said, why can't you send cases of wine? I have a friend who lives somewhere in Tennessee. You cannot. You have to go through rule and regulation and permit. You have no idea the paperwork we have in. You have no idea. It's insane. So, for a Frenchman, it's very difficult to understand that unless you have good distributor in every state, you're not going to sell one bottle of wine. That's it. You have to find people that have the same passion that you have for wine and understand your product that will take care of it. That's the job of a wine importer, to find the good people that will sell on the market. Because I am in California. I sell my own wines in California. But I don't sell my own wine, I swear. I also have my own distribution in New York now. That's fine. But at the beginning, I used to go through a distributor until, I used to go to New York every 2 months, and I would spend a week working the market myself. Then I had some action. But if you leave your wine with a big distributor that has 1,000 other wine, nobody's paying attention. So now I have my own distribution in New York and the same in Chicago. So I'm moving forward. And you know who told me to do so?
Yeah.
A wine sommelier from New York. He said, Martine, if you want us to buy your wine, do it yourself. Because otherwise, they couldn't find it.
Wow. I read in an article that you're the one who really discovered Burgundy and brought that into the U.S. market. How did you get to know the very small wineries in Burgundy where, and
Well,
nobody knows them.
I started from the very beginning, from the area I come from, which is Pouilly-Fuissé. Then I moved into Saint-Tenay because I met a winemaker, and then the winemaker said, well, why do you want to know somebody in Chassagne-Montrachet? Yes, well, I take you to one of my friends. So, they never seen a woman buying wines anyway. What helped me is because when I was a child, a teenager, I always did harvest at my aunt's place in Burgundy, in Lermacon. So I knew everything about winemaking. I tasted wine. I didn't, that was the way, the surrounding my background. So when I grew up, I tasted wine very, very well. So when I started to import wines, when I was buying wine, I will taste the wine, but I knew how it was made, how it should taste. So, on those wineries would trick me saying, well, I'm going to give you an old bottle. I'm going to taste you. I want you to taste this wine. Don't hurry, but tell me what vintage it is. And I say, oh God, So every time I was right. So those old guys said, okay, well, why do you want to see somebody in Chassagne? Come back tomorrow morning. I'll take you to Chassagne-Montrachet. And so I met another winemaker, and we got along, and I started buying wine. And then he said, well, I have a friend in Chambol-Musigny. I went to the army with it. There's all relationship between these old guys. And it's how I got in. And nobody ever put me down.
Wow.
It was a miracle. I was the only one, as a woman at that time, that was buying wine. But nobody said anything, and they were happy with me. And I knew how to taste wine.
Yeah.
They never checked even my bank account or anything. They shook hands. They were happy. We're going to put the script label. You had to explain A to Z. But I had people, not only in Burgundy, in the Loire Valley, for example. I went to a guy, he didn't even have a telephone. He had no telephone.
Wow.
No fax. And we only wrote to each other. And I will send a letter, and he said yes. It was so funny. But they never even imagined I could be dishonest. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
They were very trusting.
Yeah.
And that's how. But you see, I found later on a lot of people that's been burned by dishonest American or whatever, that bought wine and never paid or whatever. It was a lot of sour juice over there.
Yeah.
You have to be a professional.
Yeah, for sure. I have a couple questions just from what you just said. One is you can taste every glass and be able to tell the vintages, and that's amazing. In terms of buying wine from the buyer's perspective, from the end buyer's, end consumer or investor's perspective, how would you advise them to buy wine? At what age?
If you are only investing for return, that's one thing.
Yeah.
All the people I knew in those days, and even now, are people that invest in wine, okay, but they want to drink it also.
Right.
You see, that's the difference. They are also consumers.
Yeah.
If you are only an investor, is one thing.
Yeah.
You stick to big Bordeaux and that's it. But if you are a wine lover, consumer, then you go to other wines like Burgundy, the Rhone Valley. There's one fantastic wine in the Rhone Valley, worth a lot of money. But those they're small quantity, but the people that buy it are because they love the wine. You see, because they're known in a small circle because they don't have millions of cases, but they invest because of that. And also you have Spain has great winemakers also, and great wines. And Italy has great winemakers and great wines. So the people that really love wine will search for those, and they're right, because they're going up in value also, no doubt.
Yeah, and some people, they collect a lot of wine with the goal of wanting to drink them, but then they can collect too much wine, and then they end up selling some of them.
Okay. Those people that invest in 10 cases of Cheval Blanc is not to drink them. It's just an investment. They might drink a case. But if you look at those people that buy quantity, large quantities, it's for investment.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, because nobody can drink that much. But, it's like anything. If you start collecting on a big scale, whether it's stamps or wine or whatever, art, you start because you love it, and then you start because you realize you're going to make money. Mm-hmm. I can't see, for myself, I bought some, when I had a little money, I bought some Bordeaux for myself. But I didn't buy 10 cases, I bought 1 or 2, 3 cases, That's it. I bought for myself some big wine from Madame Leroy, because I was so in love with her wine. So I bought for myself some special wine from her. When I bought wine from Henri Jaillet, I always saved myself some cases over the years, because I said, when I'm getting old, I will drink those wine. Not because I look for an investment. It was just pure love of the wine.
Yeah. When you taste those vintages, at what point in the tasting would you say, this is the vintage that I'm going to buy now, or this is the vintage that I'm going to wait?
I'm going to tell you a story.
Yeah.
You have to understand, I'm running a business. If you want to keep your winery happy, you don't buy only on a good year. You buy every year.
Right.
Because a good winemaker should make good wine every year, even if it's not an exceptional year. It has to be very nice. And it turns out that even in a lesser year in Burgundy, the wine developed very nicely. And, like I can tell you, 2007 was a year that everybody sort of said, oh, no, you won't. But now when you find it on a wine list in a restaurant, grab it. It's delicious. In Grand Cru, Burgundy, Côte de Nuit, they are delicious wine. If you find some, then you have 2008, 2009, you have some very good year. But if you want the exclusivity of a winery, you have to commit yourself to buy the wine every year. You can't choose and pick. Those guys, their livelihood depends on you being faithful to bring the wine to America every year. The guy has a great reputation. His wine is good, and he will sell anyway. There are some stores, they want only the great vintage. It doesn't work that
okay.
Every year. Then they want to get the great wine, the great vintage. That's the way it is. When I started, I had only California. Nobody cared about exclusivity. But when I expanded, I wanted exclusivity, because the livelihood of those people depend on my being constant in my buy.
Right. Buying each vintage every year.
You go every year. Go every year to a winery. You go after the harvest.
Yeah.
You see what's done. And then you go in the spring when the second fermentation sometime is over, and you taste the wine again.
Yeah.
And then you try it after it's bottled, but you get a pretty good idea of the quality of the wine.
Yeah.
And if it is a disaster, you don't buy it. It happened to me. A guy did a terrible bottling of one wine, and I said, look, I would like to buy the wine to help you out, but I cannot because my label is on it.
Right.
Therefore, it's my reputation also, and it will destroy your reputation and my reputation.
Yeah.
So he said, well, if you don't buy my red, you won't have the white. And I said, well, then I won't buy wine from you because I cannot do that.
Right. Wow. So it's more about the winemaker, the reputation and the quality of the winemaker, as opposed to particular vintages.
But you see, because they're so skilled.
Yeah.
I have to tell you something. Every year you make wine, and every year there are some fantastic year, there is some average year, but the wine has a quality anyway. It's not something you don't want to drink. It will not age for a long time, but they're still very charming wine. And nobody yet has found out why a wine that's not supposed to be such a great wine, vintage, all of a sudden, 10 years later, oh my God, this is absolutely delicious.
Yeah.
Because a good winemaker should not fail making a bad wine. It doesn't happen. The quality of the grape is crucial. But if you sort out your grapes, if you take only the good one to make your wine, if you're very careful, you can make a very good wine, no matter what.
Right.
I think that's very important to make people understand that the quality of the wine is every year in a bottle. The quality is there. Now, it's a different graduation into exceptional, excellent, very good, but you drink young wines in order to age the great bottle. You can't drink everything at once anyway.
And when you taste a vintage,
yeah,
I would guess you can project how that vintage will age over the years, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at the analysis of the wine, you see the acidity, the sugar content, the density, the color, the smell, the aroma. You analyze all that, it's going to be very, very nice wine. That's it. I mean, my palate is conducting my taste. My palate tell me, this is really good. There's no problem with this wine.
Yeah.
It will be good.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me, when the wine was not to my taste, boy, I will tell them. I am sorry, but that is not going to work. But it happened a couple of times. People that I selected by meeting them the first time, tasting the wine, immediately I felt this guy has a talent, and it's my job to lead him to make better wine, and he'll be a success. It's like a painter, you're an art dealer, you look at an artist, and you see something that the others don't have. You need a passion, a talent, and you say, okay, this guy, I think I can deal with, I can promote, and he'll be a success.
Right.
The only thing I like when in my job as I was, in those days, is because it's to discover a new talent and put it on the market. How exciting is that? There's nothing more exciting. I found this new guy nobody knows about. I put this wine on the market. Everybody say, oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Do you look at the wine ratings, or you are deciding the taste and the quality of the wine yourself?
First, I import the wine anyway, no matter what the critics are going to say. But I know, all my wines are very good rating. Right. I know the taster at the newspaper. I know it's going to like it. They are in the business of tasting wine all day long, so they know. They recognize the quality. There's no problem.
Yeah.
Before people, some years ago, people will live on looking at the rating. If it is a 90 point or a 95 point. Now, less and less people look at the rating. They're used to the wineries they buy. Every year they've never been disappointed, and they love the wine. Of course, maybe it's got a 96 this year rather than 94 last year, but they don't care,
Right.
They know the wine is good. It's not, before it used to be, when Parker wrote about wines, it a small audience. When the wine spectator started writing about wine, there was a small audience also, but they grew in recognition. And, everybody now recognize that they have a purpose, is to bring wines on the market that people can trust and taste and buy.
So do you think, is it the ratings is a way of marketing for the wineries that are recognized by the ratings?
No, it isn't. Okay. If you want to put a winery on the market that nobody knows about, how are you going to approach it? If you send sample to a newspaper, whatever it is, it's because you want the name to appear in the magazine. And that name is going to be, people will say, oh, I read about this guy. It's how you bring, the guy to be recognized. If you don't have any rating, a new guy on the market doesn't have a chance.
Yeah.
You need the wine writers. It's absolutely necessary because there are a lot of new consumers on the market. There are a lot of new consumers that all of a sudden decide they love Burgundy, they love Pinot Noir. So they're going to start reading about it. And if they see the name of the wine they like, it encourages them to buy more and to be more, involved in their purchase.
Right.
I mean, even it's important for a small guy who lives in the middle of no place. He received the Wine Spectator or Parker's review, and he says, "Oh, this is the one I never tasted. I should buy it because it's a good rating. The description is nice, and so on." And that's how you create a market.
Yeah.
When I started, I only dealt with restaurant because I said, I'm going to put a wine nobody knows about on a shelf in a store. So I decided to approach the restaurant and talk to the chef in those days, or the waiter or whatever, the owner. And they knew they knew little about wine. Some did know more, but they loved the wine and they say, okay, they recognize, they put it on the wine list. The consumer comes, buy a bottle of my wine, and he said, this is really good. You know where I could find it? So he asked to have copy of the label, to soak the label. He goes to the store. He said, would you please tell me if I can buy this wine? The guy says, Martine's wine. Called me and he said, somebody wants to buy your Puy Fuissé. Can I have some? What is your price? That's how it happened. There was my own advertising when I started, only restaurant. And then when I got more known, I started my little business, then I went to the store. So I put my wine in the store, but I already had a reputation. A small winery, in the last 4 years, the new owner of the company, we went and get some winery in Savoie, in the Alps, and the guy never seen anybody that spent 5 hours to get in the mountain and visited him, and he said, well, the wines were superb, and he said, you came all the way here, you're going to be my distributor if you like my wine. That's how it started.
Wow. So
this guy who get a reputation can't keep the wine in stock. The wine is so good. You see?
Mm-hmm.
But the quality spoke. We back him up here. We tested it through the restaurant, the store. The salespeople presented it to the customer. Bingo. Up.
Wow.
That's the way it is. But the guy, the winery in the Alps will never come to America with this little bottle under his armpit and say, I make wine. Doesn't work that way.
Right. My last question is, do you have any advice for wine buyers or collectors or investors in today's market?
Well, today's market is a broad market. There are a lot more wines than it used to have. But you see, by reading the press, reading the people that are specialists either in Burgundy or in Bordeaux, critics, wine critics, and so on.
Yeah.
And then also by going to tasting or learning more about wine, they can do very well. They have to, there's sure value in great chateau, in some vintages, but altogether, unless you have a bomb vintage, it happens. Bordeaux more likely because they produce so much wine. But, they have to trust the merchant, the press. They have to be educated. First, I tell you what, in my little company, for many years, people, when they saw my name on the bottle, it's Martine, it's a sure value. That's it. My reputation. Your reputation, if you have the reputation and people trust your reputation, who is importing this wine? Who is this man or this woman who imports the wine?
Yeah.
Is she reputable? I'm reputable. If I put a wine in the market, people will say, oh, this is Martine's wine.
Yeah.
That's it. There are other people like me who have a reputation. Well, and they always put good wine on the market. The reputation of the importer is crucial. There are a lot of wineries in the market, and you have to know who is importing it and why is it good. But people, if they want to collect wine, they got to spend some time getting educated themselves. Because, some people like only Pinot Noir. Some people only like Cabernet. They have to decide what they want to collect. Is it white Burgundy? Is it white Bordeaux? Is it Champagne? Champagne you can collect aussi. Champagne is a wine that can age like any other wine. I'm talking of vintage champagne that are fantastic.
Right.
So, people used to think champagne was a drink that you open a bottle and that's it. But now people are aging champagne, and collectors are searching in auction all champagne from reputable like Bollinger, Salon Le Mesnil, whatever.
That's great. So that's my conversation with Martine. I hope you enjoyed it and this is helpful. If you liked the interview, please share it with others, and please leave us a comment if you have any thoughts, questions, aha moments, or if you want to share your own journey of buying, collecting, or investing in fine wine. Please also let us know if there are further topics you want to hear about. This is Cici Lang from Buncast by auctionforecast.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.